Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we are back. We are officially in season. Granted, a couple weeks away from a game, but the pads are on, the cleats are on. We're hearing commotion on Howard Jones Field. Football is back, Cody, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's the best time of the year as a football fan, right? And even tomorrow, right? Tomorrow is going to be the Jets and the Browns kickoff.
No way, really?
Yeah, for preseason football, the Hall of Fame game. So if you're a football fan, just know starting tomorrow for the next 7 months, I think, right? NFL season ends in February. There's going to be football on television every week, every weekend, and it's just beautiful. So if you're a football fan and you're not excited about that, then there's something wrong with you. So, and fall camp started as well for college football. It's just right around the corner. I'm getting the chills just talking about it. I'm amped up. Ton of hope, right? Everybody, this is the best time of the year because everyone feels like, why not us this year, right? NFL, why not us win the Super Bowl? College football, let's win a conference. Let's go to the national championship. So not a better time to be a college football fan than right now.
Very excited. We have a lot to talk about. We got to get into the initial takeaways from the first couple practices of fall camp. Before we do, just a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If your app allows it, please rate and review. Really helps us, and we greatly appreciate everyone who's done it so far. It helps the algorithm, and we love when we can promote. So thank you to everyone who's done it. Also, if you want to get your voice heard on the show, look out for a tweet or a question box on either Twitter or Instagram or socials are Victory Pod USC. We usually put out kind of a PSA to get your questions in, usually a day before we record, so just look out for that. And then we also have to announce the giveaway winner, Cody, and I have to apologize. The jellyfish emoji really threw people off.
Yeah, that was me too, though. I don't have it.
I didn't know that people didn't update their iOS system.
You just told me before, right? You said, is your iOS updated?
Yeah.
I don't know. I never checked that. I don't think I've updated it, and I don't know how long.
Okay.
I don't have like the
You're in the dark ages.
Yeah, well, I don't have it where it's like an instant update or it just automatically does
got it.
So all of the tweets for me were like the little square with the question mark in the middle. And I couldn't remember when we first started getting them. That's how I know the episode drops too, is because I get all the tweets. I was like, what did Keely pick? I couldn't remember. I know I picked the golf because of the Open Championship being on, but I could not remember what it was until someone finally sent like an actual photo of a jellyfish, and I was like, oh, that's right, that's what it was. But
whoopsies.
Yeah, that was a little confusing for some people, but people got creative with it. There were some other emojis that were kind of close to a jellyfish.
Yeah.
There were some pictures. There was people were getting creative, but
people
they were
rose
still
to the challenge.
Yeah, we still counted every single one
Proud
too.
of you.
If you didn't do a jellyfish, or you didn't have your iOS updated. Everybody that tweeted with the emojis, we absolutely counted. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I was a little confused at the beginning of that.
Yeah, we'll be more cognizant. I mean, we try. This was our first error in several.
I wouldn't call
ways.
it an error. I mean,
okay, sure, okay.
If you're being hard on yourself, it was an error on your part. I'm not. Wasn't on me, but
thanks, Cody.
No, but
appreciate it.
But like I said, everybody counted still. It was pretty fun. I thought it was fun. The way people were getting creative with it, so I enjoyed it. But yeah, we'll be a little more simple this time.
Yes, for sure. Also, we're officially on YouTube. I know I said it last week, but we are on YouTube. Cody just did a nice little point. Oh, he's pointing to all the cameras.
All the cameras.
We're officially a simulcast. So if you want to see how the sausage is made, if you're more of a viewer than a listener, go ahead and go to USC Athletics on YouTube. That's the channel that these post on. It's really exciting. Thank you to everyone who's been watching. We've reached a whole new audience, so it's really cool. So glad to have everyone on board and kind of grow the show even more. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's been really cool. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I hate watching myself I didn't mind self-scouting football-wise, right? I'd watch film religiously, but when it comes to broadcasting, I've learned that I absolutely hate. So I'll watch little clips here and there.
Yeah.
But I cannot go back. And even when I did the Trojan tailgate, anything that talking wise isn't bad, but when we get on video and I go back and watch it, but I'll go read the comments. I know there's a ton of new fans on there, which has been awesome. The views, the likes have been amazing. It's been really cool to reach a whole new audience like you just mentioned. But yeah, it's tough for me to go back and watch it, but hopefully everybody else enjoys watching it on YouTube as much as I don't. So
the opposite
of that, yeah.
Okay, one more thing before we get into the meat and potatoes, Cody, now that you called me out on how much I say that.
I've coined that phrase for you. I started saying it last episode,
for
too.
Me.
Yeah.
I confirmed today, actually, that Dion Bailey will be back for this upcoming season. I know, very excited, former USC defender. He was on last year giving
big shout out, Dion.
Excellent defensive analysis. I know that's an area where we're sometimes like, well, let's see what Dion has to say. So really glad we can actually refer to him again this season. So excited to have him back on. And I just wanted to announce it since it became official today. So excited to have him back on. Alrighty, Cody. Well, we are 5 practices into fall camp as it stands. We're recording on a Wednesday night. And I will say, so far, it doesn't feel like quote unquote real football. They haven't gone in full pads yet. For me, the first couple practices of fall camp, you can't glean too much necessarily just because there's so much trial and error, 1, and 2, it's the acclimatization period. So they can't really go full go yet. So we've seen football, and that to me is exciting in itself. Like, I'm not complaining, but I feel like we have to wait till like week 2 and week 3 to really understand what we're seeing out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And in week 1 is, and Lincoln said it, I think either today or in his first press conference, is 120 teams also have a day 1, have a great start to camp.
Yeah.
The adrenaline's high. Everyone's excited. Everyone's fresh, right? You just had the entire summer after spring ball ended to kind of get you in the weight room still working out, doing the player ran practices, but your body's fresh. You're ready to go. You're the most healthiest you're going to be when camp starts in those first couple of days. But yeah, I agree. When you get to week 2, in my opinion, that's when fall camp really starts. Week 2, week 3, you've already had a week of practice. That adrenaline's worn off a little bit. You're in the dog days. You know, you've gone, for some of these players, they go 4 a.m. till 11 p.m. You know, some of these workouts, some of these camps, some of these meetings afterwards are so long, and those days can be so grueling that you get in this, I don't want to say you get into this routine, because every day is a little different, walk through practice. Like today was 6 a.m., tomorrow was 2:15, so it's tough to get in a true routine. But when that second week hits, it really becomes, okay, how much do I love football? How much do I really love this? Your body's tired. There's a little bit of aches and pains. Some guys are dealing with a little bit of injury issues. Your mind starts to go a little bit. You don't have any contact with the outside world. It's tough. It can be really difficult. But yeah, I think week 2 is when you really separate the good teams from the great teams. And the craziest part for me, and I'm having flashbacks right now just talking about it, but that was the crazy part for me, was like days don't exist anymore. Like it would be Saturday and you'd have a full day, like Saturday for everyone else outside of football, enjoying the weekend, off from work, doing stuff, at home, hanging out with the family. It's just another day. It's just another fall. It's practice day 12 or whatever it may be.
It just bleeds into the next day.
Like the days, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all that stuff is gone. There's no more days. It's just day 10, day 12, day 14, whatever it may be. But that's where you build championship football teams, that second, third week of camp. And the crazy part right now for this team is they're still in summer school, right? Like they have guys going to class still. That's unbelievable. I can't imagine. I can't speak on that. We never did that, but it's because of the week 0 game. I know they had to start a little early, but I couldn't imagine what it would be like getting in a fall camp mindset and still having to do summer classes, going to class, going back, doing meetings, all that stuff. So yeah, first week's awesome to see. Everyone gets excited. You get to see how everyone's going to be. Guys falling into position groups, guys trying out new things, all that. But week 2 and week 3 for me is when fall camp really starts.
To your point about school, it's crazy because that's why they're doing practices so early. Riley was like, we either had to do 6 a.m. or like 7:30 p.m. And he was like, we already did summer workouts at 6 a.m., so why not continue it?
Yeah.
But he talked about like, instead of having time to go back and sleep or like get a little bit of a mental break,
recovery,
you're going to class. And like they do that in season, but fall camp practices compared to game week practices are completely different. So this is just, I don't wish a week 0 on anyone after seeing how this goes.
Yeah, that would have been tough. I just try to think back how tough fall camp was originally without having summer school, and now on top of that you have guys going to class. But that's true what Lincoln said is those, you cherish so much those, hey, practice ends, you got an hour and a half or 2 hours before next meeting to go back, try to get a nap in, go down to the players lounge, try to get some food, relax a little bit. Now you're going to class, and then you don't get that initial break after practice, and then it's straight into meetings. Then you have walkthroughs and more meetings, and then let's finish it off with some more meetings at night as well. So I couldn't imagine. But either way, it's great because there's a lot of high character guys on this football team. That's what Lincoln has built this team around. So if any team in the country can do it, it's USC. I know these guys are going out there taking practice serious, finishing summer school, very strong, knocking out some of those extra credits they can get done in the summer, and then coming back for more football. So it's going to be challenging, but it's only for a week, so that's the good thing about it. But yeah, it's that would be tough as a player to have to do both starting out in fall camp.
Now, before we go into kind of the topics that have come out of press conferences that we've had so far over the last 5 practices, I just want to talk about like some observations I have just from I've been to every practice except for one. I overslept. I'm sorry. But I know.
I like how you just rushed through that.
I overslept. I'm sorry.
Was it a on purpose overslept or alarm clock oversleep?
No, it was one of those like, okay, it's 4 a.m. Okay, just a little bit more sleep. Oh my goodness, it's 6:10. Practice started 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. You deserve a break every now and then, so that's not a big deal.
But like when they're not having a break, I feel guilty.
That's a top 5 worst feeling of all time, though. Like when you oversleep.
That panic.
Yeah. Real quick before we dive into fall camp, though, I have one story on that, and I'm kind of outing myself here, but
okay.
I remember my freshman year at SC. Luckily, it wasn't a fall camp or anything like that, but it was off-season workouts. I think in the spring, before spring ball started. I'd only been on campus for a couple weeks. It was me and Andre Hadari, our kicker at the time. We're both from Bakersfield, so we were roommates at the time. We overslept. We were roommates. We overslept for one of AA's workouts, who was the strength coach at the time, Aaron Osmus. And we overslept for a workout. And we woke up. The workout was at like 5:30. We didn't wake up till like 6:30. Like both of us thought the other person set an alarm. We're freshmen. I think I was still 17 at the time. Hadn't even been 18 yet. And we overslept, and we both woke up, and we were like, dude, look at your clock. And it was
the panic.
Just the panic. Just woke up too. You don't know where you're at, what's going on.
Adrenaline.
Only been on college campus. Wasn't in my, at my house in my own room. I was in a dorm, and we sprint over, and I'll never forget. AA said, all right, you guys are going to learn the hard way. We had to do the Stairmaster with medicine balls, like heavy medicine balls over our head, doing the Stairmaster. And there was no, this is how long we're going. It was go until I say stop. And I promise you, for the rest of my career, SC, NFL, so thank you, AA, for that in the long run, but for the rest of my career in all football, everything I did, I've never been late again. It was the worst punishment, combined with the worst feeling ever, too, because I'm a freshman thinking, I'm late, I'm never going to play now. I'm going to have to transfer. They're going to hate me. They're going to think, Kiffin's not going to think I'm committed, all this stuff. So it was tough. It was a terrible feeling, but yeah,
how long did you end up going for?
I don't even remember until I was
blacked it out.
Without being
blocked it out.
too vulgar, when I was vomiting on the floor in the weight room.
Goodness.
And this was back when they still had, I want to say it was under Heritage. I don't think we had McKay yet, so it was at the Heritage. So it's kind of a smaller weight room.
Like right here.
Yeah, where we're at right now, basically, I guess. But yeah, that was one of the worst experiences. So for all you football players want to go to college, want to be at that next level, just make sure your alarm clocks are set and set about 10 of them as well, so you're never late. Yeah, that was a hard wake up call. That was my welcome to college football moment too. Before we even got into practices.
Yikes! So. I feel for little Cody on that one.
Yeah, that was rough. Yeah. So I feel your pain a little bit for oversleeping on that.
Well, I didn't have any punishment like you did.
Yeah, you didn't have. Coach Wiley didn't. Coach Wiley didn't.
No. Okay, so like I said, just some quick thoughts that I've had from practices. Obviously, I'm not going to give away any like secrets or whatever. Coach Riley is very much on the let's keep everything on the down low, which any coach would be. So we got to respect that. The first thing that stood out to me, day one, much more height in just the receiver room. Not only just Jacoby Lane, he's a guy who just, you see him, he sticks out. A guy we knew that was going to stick out on the field, Deuce Robinson, super tall. In my mind, he kind of reminds me of a offensive Eric Gentry. Like, you know how Eric Gentry is just like a stick and just like you see the head above everyone else? That's Deuce.
Because Deuce like 6'5", 6'6", right?
Something like that. Yeah. And so he's super tall. And then, just more tight end, healthy tight ends with Lake McCree.
Which is big.
And Jude Wolfe. It was really nice to see Jude Wolfe back healthy. And I do apologize. We forgot to include him in our offensive preview. So apologies to Jude Wolfe, but glad to see him back and healthy for his final year as a Trojan. So that was one of the observations I had. Tight ends look good so far, like I said. And then I just had this random thought of like it sunk in because Caleb is being Caleb on the practice field, being Houdini. It was like, this is insane. USC has a Heisman winning quarterback returning for another season. Like, it's a wild thought. It's a wild realization when he does a Caleb play. You know?
And it's been so long. Well, that's kind of that kind of sounds like a USC proud moment right there. Like some schools don't even have or never have had a Heisman, but it's been so long since our last Heisman Trophy. Yeah, absolutely. That's starting with Caleb. That's amazing. And I would love to. And I unfortunately haven't been able to go to a practice yet. But can you feel a different vibe from him? Is it the same? Is he still the same person? Does he seem a little more loose?
Exactly the
same. A little
more
just the same? That's awesome.
Exactly
and that's what you want to hear. And we did that House of Victory thing talking to Carson Palmer. Him and Caleb got up on the stage and talked about what it's like coming back after a Heisman Trophy win. And Carson was like, nothing really changed for me. I mean, there might have been a little more pressure, but you've got to block all that out and kind of be the same person. So that's good to hear that Caleb's out there being the same person that we saw last year. I know he wants another one. Probably he won't admit it. He wants national championships. He wants rings, but I'm sure he probably wants to go for back-to-back, which I think he absolutely can. when it's all said and done. But yeah, and going to the tight end position, that's awesome to see Jude back out there healthy. I think too, in our defense, I'm still new here, so I've never seen him play.
That's fair.
He hasn't played since 2021, right? I think was the last time.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I was checking his stats. I think he had a couple catches in 2021, and that was the last time he played. So I'm not too familiar with him. I'm excited that he's back. He's healthy. I've already said it on multiple other podcasts that we need to add depth to the tight end room. I would love to see the tight ends with Lake, with Jude, Carson making that move as well. Some of those guys just being a little bit more impactful in the pass game this year. We didn't have that last season. It was a lot more of a – and Lake had flashes here and there. The Notre Dame game was great. We had a couple flashes from Josh and Malcolm in the Utah game. They had some catches there as well. But just as a whole, looking back at the season, there wasn't a ton of production in the tight end room. And I know it's not just pass catching. You're also involved in the run game. But would love to see some more there. So it's good to have some more depth. And then wide receiver-wise, I mean, you had Deuce, you had Jacoby, Brendan Rice, who's 6'3" as well. Those are guys that can absolutely be a factor down in the red zone because our starting receivers last year were Jordan Addison, Mario Williams, Brendan a little bit here and there, Taj Washington a little bit here and there. I know guys rotated in and out, but there really wasn't a package that we had where it was 6'3", 6'5", 6'4", and I don't know if Jacoby's going to play this year, but to have someone kind of in the waiting, getting ready for his opportunity with that size as well is going to be tremendous for this offense.
Yeah. Another guy glad to see back, Eric Gentry. Now, he told me in the in-house media day that he's not 100%. He said fall camp is the least of his worries. He said they just want to make sure he's ready to go
makes sense.
by game day. But it was cool to see him suited up, happy, like just happy to be back on the field. I love seeing when players are finally like, yes, the mental reps are over. They're back on the field playing. So that was cool to see as well.
Yeah, and I think it was either Lincoln or Coach Odom. One of them were talking. They were just saying in their press conference was his mindset is almost better this year. Obviously, they still want to add a little bit of size. His size is noticeable, but and it was funny too. Coach Odom, they asked him how big do you want him to get, and they said as big as he can get, as much weight as he can carry. As much as he can handle. But overall, they said his mindset, his leadership, his confidence, none of that took any. It wasn't hurt last year, right? Missing that time and then coming back, trying to be fresh, getting out of the football mindset a little bit can be tough on some guys because when you get in a rhythm as a player, and it's not just in season, it's in season, spring ball, off season, player ran practices, summer up to fall camp, you're constantly doing football. It overtakes your life. And when you get away from that and you can just have to rehab and do the mental side of things, it can be tough. But to hear that he hasn't missed a beat, he's excited to be back out there, just seeing him moving around again was awesome, I'm sure, for all the coaching staff and for you in the media as well to see. But yeah, I'm excited for him. I'm still a big question on where he's going to play this year, what he's going to do. But I think the opportunities are endless for him and in that great linebacker core that we have right now. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch. Another
thing that has been interesting to me is kind of understanding who Mason Cobb is a little bit more. Got to get to know him a little bit at Pac-12 Media Day, but also just hearing Brian Odom's comments when I talked to him at the in-house media day. It was so funny to me because Odom was like, guys who are as competitive as Mason Cobb is usually have a screw loose. He was like, they're a little crazy. And he was like, Mason's like surprisingly not. I just thought it was a hilarious, candid comment from him. But I talked to Mason today about it. I was like, how would you describe your personality with your competitiveness? And he was like, I'm weirdly calm, but if I need to switch it on, I can. Like, I can just be that competitive guy. And so by all accounts, we've heard from USC's players and coaches that like Mason just has an eye for the ball and being so aggressive, and that's what you need in an inside linebacker. So I just always think like there's just a classic linebacker type that's kind of like, I don't care. I have a nose to the ball and I'm just going to go. I have no fear and I'm tackling. And that's kind of, I'm learning more about Mason Cobb in that sense.
Yeah, and I'm very intrigued by him. You've had more time to spend around him with Media Day, all that stuff, the USC Media Day the other day. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to him. I'm just going off of some of the sound bites that you get to talk to with Coach Odom and Mason, as well as his film from Oklahoma State last year, watching some of those games, which are unbelievable to watch, by the way. I've mentioned it before, but if you haven't watched his game tape from last year, go watch some of that. The TCU is a great one to watch as well. But overall, like the mindset as a linebacker, like you want to have a couple guys, as Odom said, on defense with the screw loose, guys that are a little bit wild. And you got to have some of those, right? You got to have some of those guys that are just straight football brains, right? Just all football all the time. You can tell them two things. They're going to say one word back, hey, yes, sir, and then they'll go do it. And they seem a little crazy out there. You love those on defense, especially offensive line as well. You want some of those guys. But hearing Coach Odom talk about Mason, it tells me he's a very level-headed player. Like when he says himself that I can turn it on when I need to. I can turn it off when I need to. That's awesome to have, especially as a guy who plays in the middle of your defense. Now, again, I don't know if him or Gentry will be the starting inside linebacker or the middle linebacker, but to have a savvy vet on your defense in Mason Cobb, who has a ton of high college level playing experience, also has a great mindset and a great attitude towards the game, is awesome to hear. That's something I think from last year. Not saying that guys didn't have that, but I think that's something that's going to help USC's defense from a year ago to have that senior leadership on that side of the football.
Okay, one more Keely observation, if you will.
Yeah.
Mekhi Lemon is finally healthy. He was injured in spring. And I think that is just such a helpful security blanket for Malachi Nelson. First fall
absolutely.
camp as a true freshman. That was his guy at Los Al. I think it really has helped him just having that go-to receiver in his back pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something as a comfortability level, especially just as a freshman, to have other freshmen out there, even if and the fact that they were high school teammates is even better. But yeah, as a freshman quarterback going into fall camp, it gets a little intimidating going with a Brendan Rice, with the Mario Williams, some of the vets out there, because you want to be perfect, right? We would have Robert Woods or some of those guys out there, Brandon Carswell, that I would get at with one-on-one sometimes, or getting some routes on air, and you get a little tense, like, all right, this got to be perfect. These guys are, they're good players, but when you're out there with other freshmen, it's a good feeling, and then obviously they played together at Los Al, so I know there's a great connection there. They understand each other. They've worked tremendous amount of time off season, high school, all of that. So that's going to help a lot. And if, in a perfect world, neither of them will play this year, obviously Mekhi maybe, if things happen, if he has a chance to get out there, get on the field. Receivers a little bit easier to rotate in, but obviously Malachi has this year to really learn, with Miller as a 2, Caleb as the 1, to understand that he can make some of those reads, make some of those mistakes early on in fall camp, and learn from them like he did a little bit in spring. And now he has one of his go-to receivers from high school there to help him out as well, as I think a huge confidence boost for Malachi.
Already some topics that have arisen because of things we've heard from coaches and players. First one we actually heard from in-house media day from offensive line coach Josh Henson. He indicated that Jonah Monheim has moved to left tackle, and therefore Michael Tarquin has moved to right tackle. So Henson indicated that was the case, and then Lincoln Riley was asked about it during his first press conference after the first practice of fall camp. He kind of pushed back a little bit in the sense that it wasn't final. He said that we're going to try it out here in camp. He said they're working combinations, and we felt like this was the best way to start training camp. So it sounds like more musical chairs for the offensive line. And I did get to talk to Henson about that, and he said there's so many unknowns heading into this camp as far as who's going to line up where. So to me, it's more of the same in the sense that there's a lot of question marks at offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was something we talked about. I just went off of the spring starting group is kind of a base level, but we still had no idea with some of the new faces that are there. But yeah, I think for someone to make that move, Jonah Monheim is someone that can do it. We saw him play multiple positions last year.
Yeah.
He's one of, if not the best offensive lineman we have when it comes to versatility, being able to move around. And he doesn't seem like a type of guy that's going to complain. They could say, hey, go play left guard today, play right tackle on Wednesday, and left tackle on Thursday.
And
right?
I feel like he's done that.
And he would do it. Yeah, and he absolutely would do it. That's awesome to have. And someone that comes to mind that's done that before for me is the late, great Max Turk. He started as a left tackle as a freshman. Then he moved to guard as a sophomore, and then junior, senior year, he played center, right? So you have these guys that can play, and that's going to help him a ton too at the next level, to see that he can play all these different positions. But at the end of the day, I think that's what it is. It's at surface level, trying guys out at different positions, seeing how Jonah feels at left tackle, seeing if that works, moving Tarquin over to right tackle, seeing if he's comfortable. I know he played on the right side of the line at Florida as well, so maybe he's a little bit more comfortable there. And it can be tough for Tarquin coming in, learn a new offense, now a new position than what he's used to. So I think overall it's just, again, trial and error, see if it works. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Jonah can do at left tackle.
Now, we actually got two specific questions about this, so I'm just going to jump that up to this segment. First one is from Dan from Denver, who said, how does the flipping of Monheim from right tackle to left impact the line as a whole? Looks like will still be Jonah and Tarquin at the tackle spots, so I'm not sure what level of impact this will have. And then Fighting On MC said, I understand that Jonah Monheim is versatile on the offensive line, and it's recently been announced that he will play left tackle. How hard is it to switch to a different position like that? So just combining those questions there.
Yeah, it can absolutely be difficult. As an offensive lineman, I've never had to do it. I played quarterback my whole life, so I don't want to speak too much on that. I know it's probably a lot harder than some people think. You may think, hey, you're an offensive lineman, you can play anywhere, but playing interior to play into the outside is a lot different. At center and guard, you have a little bit more help there with all three of you kind of being combined. At left tackle, right tackle, you're on an island. When it's one-on-one pass rush, when it's man blocking, and you have one of the best players normally on a defense is the rush in, or a guy coming off the edge of the line of scrimmage in a linebacker position, you're probably blocking their best player on defense. So it can be very difficult to make that switch to go inside to outside. But like I said, with Jonah being so versatile, I think it's going to be, a couple growing pains, if you will, the first couple of days. But it's something that I feel totally comfortable that he can pick up pretty fast. And when it comes to Dan's question about how does that mess with the chemistry, if you will, the offensive line, this is the time to do it, right? We're not 4 or 5 games in, and now we're making that switch, and he only has 3 or 4 practices to figure it out and then go into game week. We are in fall camp. It's the first week. We can do things like that. Yes, spring ball is really used for trying guys at different spots, but the first couple weeks of fall camp, you can do that as well so they can build that chemistry and that comfortability level, and we're not doing it mid-season. So I think it's a great thing to have. I think Jonah's a great player, and I think he can absolutely excel at the left tackle position.
Does that tell you anything about how they perceived spring, how that went in spring?
Yeah, you could absolutely look at it that way. Is maybe that, and I don't want to be too. I don't want to guess exactly. Yeah. And it's a great question though. Is maybe, hey, Michael at left and Jonah at right wasn't working. Let's flip it now. Or it's just, hey, let's try it out.
Let's just see it
in case things happen, because there are going to be, knock on wood, we don't want it to happen, but there are going to be injuries, and the offensive line becomes a little bit of musical chairs with guys having to move around to positions maybe they're not fully comfortable with. So let's try some stuff out now. So if something does happen in the season, they've already got some reps there. But yeah, without looking too much into it, I think it's like I said, at surface level, let's put Jonah at left, see how he feels. Let's put Michael at right and go from there. And if we need to make changes, we will.
Another thing to note is that Jarrett Kingston is now healthy. He was the Washington State transfer who was out for essentially all of spring. So he's now healthy and playing in fall camp. So that's something good to see as well.
Yeah.
And now next update we got was the status of the cornerback competition for a second year in a row. Ooh, putting the hands together.
I'm excited.
Why are you excited?
It's a big, and again, I know I'm not the defensive guy. I know I'm glad we got Dion coming back, but I've been studying the defense very heavily this offseason. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk about the position. I'll let you finish off first.
No, you're good.
And then I'm ready to go.
Got a breath there. Again, second year in a row, USC is coming into the season not knowing who's going to start at both corner positions. Definitely looking for more consistency there. Both Dante Williams and Lincoln Riley have said that. The latest update we got from Lincoln Riley on Wednesday basically made it sound like it's a 3-man race. Or a rotation, if you will. Sierra Wright, Jacoby Covington, and Damani Jackson. The interesting thing about Damani is Riley highlighted that, he hasn't had a full healthy season since his junior year in high school.
That's crazy.
I know. Yeah. And Dante Williams was talking about because of that, he's lacking a little bit in technique, which is understandable if you haven't played a full season in that long. But how much does he have to make up in order to really compete at this level in the way that they want him to consistently? So it's interesting. I'm still at this point. Do you think that they will even narrow it down to 2 starting corners, or do you think they go into the season rotating those 3? Because I would say the latter.
Yeah, I think first of all, it's a good problem to have.
Sure.
At this point in the year that you have 3 guys, and Christian Roland-Wallace as well was brought up in that conversation towards the end. But when Lincoln said that there's 3 that are very even, that is a great problem to have, right? You want to have guys that could absolutely be starters on Saturdays. You don't want to have one guy that's solidified, kind of like last year, Mackay, being the starter, and now we have question marks. Not really an even race, but we have question marks on the other side of the football. Now we have 3 guys that are very solidly stating their case to be starting 1 and starting 2 corners this year for this upcoming season. But yeah, starting with Damani, I think that is a great point that Lincoln made. And it's true. He did play 7 games last year. We saw flashes of how good he can be, but it's kind of the point I just made about Eric a couple minutes ago, is when you're taken away from football, not just in season, but off season as well, spring, getting that full year of preparation. When you're taken away from that, it's hard to hit the ground running and get right back into football lifestyle, right? There are going to be some growing pains, and especially him being hurt his junior year. He played his junior year of high school and then not having a senior season. He didn't have that time to adapt to college football level speed. We're kind of seeing him do that right now live as it's taking place.
In real time,
yeah, exactly. Even though this is his 2nd or 3rd year at USC, he's still having to learn how to play at a college football level. And it sounds like he's off to a great start in camp. Started in the spring game for what it's worth. Played well throughout the entire spring. Has gotten high praise. And my favorite thing that Lincoln said about Damani, and I think this speaks volumes to his mindset, is he said day 1 was very average from him, right? He struggled a little bit on day 1, an average day. But since then, he's been Mr. Consistent. He's come out, he's made plays, he's dominated, his confidence has been there. That's very tough, especially in someone in his position, to have an average first day. It can go one of two ways. You can go into the tank, and now you're going to keep stacking bad days and feel like, well, I already screwed up on day one. Now, you know, how do I go up from here? Or you can say, hey, okay, that day's behind me. Let me self-scout. When we watch film, it's a new day. It's, you know, there's still a ton of days left in camp. So to see him take the ladder and go the positive side of that and start dominating in camp is awesome to see. I think that's a really good look into where his mindset is right now at the start of football. The second guy, too, a guy that I've been very excited about, and I'm sure everybody else has, too, is Sierra Wright. In his progression, Lincoln said that Sierra has continued to impress. It sounds like he's building off of the strong spring that he had. Yeah. In my opinion, you know, I think it's tough to say. I know they're even, but I feel like we've heard a little bit more about Sierra this offseason than any of the other guys, which is great because, again, saw flashes of it last year, right? We just need that consistency. And then speaking of that, the last guy, too, Jacoby Covington, it was cool to see Lincoln talk about it, and you could see his facial expression. I can kind of do it now because we have video, but when asked about Jacoby, he said, you know, what have you really thought about his performance and how he's done this season? And Lincoln, you could see he kind of had a vision there. He said he's been so good when he's on. It's just making him be consistent, right? And there's no more question about if he loves football all the time, the commitment that he's put in. You can see that on the practice field. You can see it in his size, in the weight room, all the efforts he's put in the offseason. It's just really getting him to be so good every single time he's on the field. You know, I think that's just going to come with more comfortability. Obviously, he's another transfer player who's still getting used to USC football. But the flashes are starting to show more and more is what Lincoln said, which is awesome. And then the last guy, I know I'm talking a lot here, but I told you I was excited about this position, and I just kind of watched Lincoln's press conference again on the way down here. He was talking about Christian Roland-Wallace.
Well, that's a whole separate topic.
Yeah, well, go ahead. Yeah, I'll let you lead into that.
Well, first off, I had just a football question for you.
Yeah.
When Riley was talking about Damani, he said, talking about his high school days, he said it's been a long time since he's had this much sustained football like we talked about. You see his long speed, which was obviously something he was really known for back in high school, and he's really running like you would expect him to be as a confident player. Long speed, what does that mean in cornerback speak?
Yeah, cornerback speak. It's basically what it is, right? Long speed. How can he cover down the field? Makeup speed is a huge thing, especially at the next level. You're going to get beat off the line sometimes, right? There's going to be guys that are bigger, faster, stronger. You're going to have Jordan Addisons you have to go against on Saturdays, Nelson Aguilar's, Marquise Lee's. It's how fast can you recover, right? If it's a go route, it's press man-to-man, and you whiff maybe on a jam, or you try to, and when I say jam, you know, you have 5 yards as a corner to have a little bit of contact. You can play hand fight a little bit. But if they beat you off the line and they're going downfield, how fast can you recover, right? How far can you run stride to stride with the receiver and not only be there on his hip, but make a play on the ball down the field as well? And it sounds like that's something that we haven't got to see a whole lot of Damani recently because of injury. He's starting to show in camp, which is awesome to hear.
Now, to what you've been dying to get to, and I think this is the biggest development so far to come out of camp, Christian Roland-Wallace, who the Arizona transfer, didn't really practice in spring because he got injured like the first day of camp. He is getting a trial at nickel, and we got to talk about Dante Williams and Lincoln Riley about that on Wednesday. And basically, they said they're not comfortable with the nickel depth. They are confident in his football IQ. They say he's a really smart player, veteran guy. Let's just see if he can handle this switch at nickel. And Lincoln said he's a fun piece for us because of his experience and how smart he is, his skill set. He can play anywhere. You can see him playing corner. You can see him playing nickel and safety. He could play any of the 5, which is a great thing, and he's certainly been impressive in camp. So cool news for Christian Roland-Wallace, given that, you know, he didn't even have spring to build on and is hitting the ground running here.
Well, what you just said right there, too, is huge praise from your head coach. He can play all 5, right? And for Lincoln and his defensive staff, that's got to be such a comforting feeling to know you have a guy who was a captain last year. You have a guy who's a 3-year starter at Arizona who played really well against USC in the past, who's put great things on game film of his experience at high-level college football to now come, you know, and be at USC. And yeah, there's a 3-way race, if you will, with Sierra, Jacoby, and Damani, but now you throw Christian Roland-Wallace into the mix. It almost sounds as if, and I don't want to, you know, discredit other guys, but it almost sounds as if not only will he compete for corner or nickel, there may be some competition opposite of Kalen at safety position as well, or why else would Lincoln say that, you know? So for him to mention that, and he's a bigger guy too. I think he's 6'1", very strong physical player, can cover the tall receivers on defense or the tall receivers on offense. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know, again, enough about him. We haven't seen a whole lot of him. I haven't seen him at all in Cardinal and Gold yet. Obviously, the practice I went to in the spring game, he wasn't playing.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where he fits into this defense, if he competes for a corner spot, or he's the first guy out in nickel defense, or again, if he competes opposite of Kalen at safety, who knows? But to have, I don't want to call him a safety blanket because he's such a good player, but to have someone that can play all 5 positions on your side of the ball, that's awesome feeling.
Yeah, and I mean, how much does his height how much of that is an attractive option for USC's coaches at that nickel position? Because Jalen Smith is the tallest nickel they have right now, and he's 5'11". So, and like you said, Christian Wallace is 6 foot, 6'1", kind of one of those roster things.
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
I go off of sometimes the college website stats will lie a little bit, but I'm giving him 6'1".
Okay, but like, how much is his height an appealing option at nickel?
Yeah, I mean, I think height definitely is a factor, especially because you're closer to the box as a nickel defender. So you're not just out there for coverage as much as a corner would be. You're involved in the run game as well. So you have to be physical at that position. But yeah, I mean, I think the speed and the athleticism is most important at that position. You're not going to be covering a lot of tall guys. Now we may see him at tight end or covering some tight ends.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about. Because I'm just thinking about the tight end issues of last year.
Well, you could feel exactly, and that was sometimes Max having to come down, who's a little bit of a smaller guy, having to play safety, which is just his versatility also is through the roof. So, but him being a yes coach guy, right? No matter where you put me, I'm going to go out there and play. You said Jalen as well, a guy that not the tallest guy in the world, but he can go out and have to cover some of these tight ends or these speedy slot guys. But you have Christian Wallace, like you said, who's now 6'1", according to Cody's stat sheet.
Sure.
But now he can go out and be involved in the run game. He can be involved, cover some of these quicker, faster slot receivers, and then, if we want to put him on a tight end, we know his size and strength will make up for that as well, and he can cover some of these bigger tight ends. So I think the opportunities are through the roof right now for Christian Wallace, but again, he's got to learn the playbook. He's got to get comfortable playing in Coach Grinch's scheme. We're a long way away from that. But right now for Lincoln Riley, it's like, hey, he doesn't have a set position here at USC. Let's try everything and see where he fits.
Anything else about the secondary before we move into just some of the tidbits about inside linebacker?
No, and to Keely's point, disclaimer again, we're not leaving guys. This isn't like a full breakdown roster of everything. Yeah, this is what have come up in the 2 open practices that have been spoken about that we've had access to.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, that's obviously going to be a huge position to keep an eye on, especially the cornerback spot.
Also, just a couple of injury updates before we go into the inside linebacker position. Bayer Alexander has had a soft tissue injury that has kept him out of camp so far. I think he's been limited according to what Lincoln Riley described. And then Romello Height has a soft tissue injury that I believe became apparent on Wednesday. It seems like he was limited according to what Riley described as well. And then segueing us into this inside linebacker position, Rajon Davis has a hand injury. But what stood out to me, Cody, is the high praise he received from Lincoln Riley. And especially when, a guy's injured, maybe he will be out for a couple of days or whatnot. You kind of tend to be like, yeah, he's injured, moving on to the next topic. But he made sure to talk about Rajon, and he said he feels like a guy that's starting to surge. He's in the best shape by far of his life. His body is much more developed than where he was when he came in. He's stronger. He's faster. He's a lot more confident. He knows the scheme really well, and he's become, I think, one of our better coverage linebackers in terms of his athleticism and field space. So we fully expect him to push. And then he kind of mumbled a little bit, but what he was saying is we push guys in the competition, which is something I didn't necessarily anticipate heading into fall camp. So I thought that was an interesting insight into that whole room, because like we previewed before, it's a very unique room, and I don't know who's gonna, especially now, I don't know who's gonna push for that starting job.
Yeah, and I love that Lincoln said that, because, and you made a great point, and we've talked about it before, but like you being a former player, I can kind of listen to what head coaches say or position coaches say, and they may not fully say it in the media, but you understand. Like, you've heard it enough as a player to what, like...
You can read in between lines.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you just said it. Lincoln could have absolutely said, yeah, Davis is out, hand injury, hopefully get him back second half of camp, moving on, right?
Yeah.
But he took time to stop and say, like, everything you just said from the quote, he's bigger, faster, stronger. He's one of our better cover linebackers that we have on this defense. He just looks comfortable. He's taken that, that next step into kind of inserting himself into this linebacker competition with an already stacked room, right? With Shane, with Mason, with Eric as well. So for Lincoln to stop and give him such high praise and not just brush over it and keep going, he's doing the right thing, right? Davis is absolutely making his case not only in spring but the early on in fall camp of saying, hey, I'm here too. I know we've got these great 3 players ahead of me, but I'm here too. I can cover well. I'm getting bigger, faster, stronger. I'm comfortable, and I can absolutely make an impact this season.
Now, another interesting wrinkle, and this is where I want the Cody reading in between the lines analysis, is inside linebacker coach Brian Odom talking about Tackett Curtis on Wednesday.
Yeah, this was huge.
He said if the ball is there, he's going to go find the ball. The guy has a nose for a ball, but again, his day-to-day mentality is as good as I've ever been around. He's got a chance to have a special career here. He's got to progress, though. He's got to learn the playbook just like every other freshman. And he mentioned at the top of that quote, he's in year 1, but we want him to get into year 2 of the defense like everyone else. So interesting.
Yes, no, absolutely. That's huge. And just kind of backtracking a little bit, when we were doing the defensive preview, he was one of the bigger question marks we had, right? Is he going to be pushed for a starting spot, right? We thought that was a long shot.
Yeah.
Is he going to be a rotational player, which I thought would be kind of more where he would fall, or is he going to redshirt and sit out or get a couple, you can get the 4 games and then still redshirt?
Yeah.
Is he going to get a little bit of time? But it sounds like to me that he is going to absolutely have a chance to, I don't want to say start it so early on, but have a chance to be a factor, an important factor.
Significant playing time.
Significant playing time.
Some type of playing time.
This season as a freshman. But it was the best thing too that Coach Odom said, and kind of piggybacking off of the comments you made as a player, and this is, again, reading between the lines, is when he said that Tackett doesn't really have bad days, but his bad days are not far off from his good days. And that what he's saying there is that's the most positive way and loving way you can say he's consistent, right? His bad days aren't far off from his good days. He has a lot of good days. He hardly has bad days, but they're not far and few in between, right? They're not far off, which is, as a freshman, and I don't want Tackett to look into this too much. I don't want him to hear it and get complacent. I know he won't. I can tell the type of work ethic he has. I hear the coaches talking about him, watching his high school game film, saw pictures on Twitter saying, the whole parking lot's already empty and there's still one car. It's Tackett's car in the weight room at 10 p.m. or whatever it was. So he's not going to, look too much into this, but to have that praise, it's got to feel good, right? It's got to give you confidence as a freshman, knowing, hey, this is what my position coach thinks of me. This is what my head coach thinks of me as well. I'm doing something right here, right? And it's a great start for him. I don't want to, go too far off, give him too much praise yet. He's got to earn it, and he's got to continue to work hard. But what, there's really no better way to start off your career at USC than to make that big of an impact. And another thing that I love that Coach Odom said is he's a competitor and he's fearless. And like you said, if he continues to play like this, his career can go as far as he wants to take it, right? He can be through the roof. So great encouraging things to hear, not only from us, but USC fans as well, to hear that about these younger stars that are going to be playing here at USC for the years to come. It's such a great thing to hear from him, and hopefully he can keep it up and make an impact this year.
And just, like I said, an interesting window into how that room is shaking out. I know it's early, but because we wrote him off a little bit in the sense that we put him in he's a freshman.
Yeah, rightfully so. Absolutely.
Yeah, which makes sense, but we'll see.
Well, it's tough to, and I know we're gonna the Deuce Robinson stuff. I get going a little bit. I'll give guys a lot of high praise, but I always preface it with, hey, they're still freshmen. We have no idea what their career is going to look like. We have no idea how their high school, how dominant they were in high school, how that's going to transition to college. It's different for everybody. But yeah, for Tackett to have that praise from Coach Odom is awesome.
One more thing for me that has been noteworthy to come out of the pressers is, and I mentioned this before, but just the size of the newcomers. But someone we haven't mentioned yet is Braylon Shelby, who is 6'5", 235 pounds as a true freshman.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys who you see a photo and you're like, are we sure he's a freshman?
I saw a video of him walking, like guys were walking out to practice, tunnel, he touched the sword, walking to Howard Jones. If you told me that was a true freshman, I wouldn't believe you. He looks like he's a NFL type player right now. His body size, his type, it's just unbelievable. Yeah, it's that's like the first part of being a defender, right? Is the intimidating factor.
Oh yeah.
For him, check.
Check.
Got it off, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, too, is Riley was asked about it on Wednesday, and he said, yeah, we all wish we could look like Braylon.
Yeah, exactly.
He was really impressed.
I'll tell you, as a quarterback, you hate looking on the defense and seeing guys that look like that right
I'm
there.
sure.
I'll tell you that much.
I'm sure. But again, this is an interesting window into how the coaches are evaluating the younger players. He said, it's been good with Braylon. He's transitioning well. He's a smart kid. He's really picking up the defense fast. I think for him, like a lot of young front guys, both on the offense and defense, that's probably the biggest change from high school football to college football, is that it's a man's game. He was like, it's just war in there. And so he said, I think a lot of guys are getting a sense of what it takes to, play D1 college football in the trenches. But he said his flash plays here 5 days in, when you see some of the rushes, you're like, okay, that's what it should look like. You see him pursue in the way that he can open up and run, and a guy his size shouldn't be able to do that. So there are some things that are really, really exciting. So another one we've been really pleased with up to this point. Yeah. Again, high praise again.
Yeah, it's just, as a Trojan fan listening to this, you've just got to be excited. And I know we're focused on the here and now, but to hear, there's a second part to that too, right? There's also that championship mentality that the star players, those elite high school recruits, transfer guys to build on for years and years to come to be successful. It's great to hear that we're getting so much praise for these younger guys. And back to Lincoln's point, that's true that there's, as a quarterback, the speed of the game when it comes to throwing gets a little bit quicker, right? Reading defense, all that stuff. Receiver, DB, one-on-ones, yeah, the receiver's a little quicker. DBs are a little better at coverage. But in those trenches, especially as a freshman, when you're going, and I just remember when I first got here, being some of our freshman defensive guys going against Khaled Holmes, going against Audrey Walker. I mean, some of these guys that were such big physical players that were Kevin Graff, right? And being a freshman looking up and saying, this guy's 6'6", 315 pounds. I was just going against high school kids that were maybe 6 foot 6'2". You had a couple big guys there, yeah, absolutely. But to hear that praise already for Braylon, to know that he's already having that type of success, and they're seeing flashes of this is what he can be. It's just making that consistent, getting there, which he will get to, is awesome to hear. So as a Trojan fan, you've got to be excited about some of these young stars already making a name for themselves.
And it also just speaks to the competitive depth issue that they had in year one, and now they feel better about in year two. Yeah. So just something interesting to watch for going forward. Another guy we haven't mentioned yet but did receive high praise on Wednesday was Christian Pierce, another freshman receiving high praise. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. I'm going to summarize here, but Riley was basically saying, out of all the true freshman safeties he's been around as a coach, like Christian Pierce is up there as far as talent-wise and how competitive he is. He said he's one of our more physical players in the secondary, and really maybe overall on the defense. I mean, he just brings an attitude with it. So, again, high praise.
Yeah, and a guy that had a great spring as well. He had an interception in the spring game, played well, had a lot of great cover plays. I remember his name getting brought up a lot in the spring game and throughout spring practice. But yeah, that was my favorite quote. And again, being a football nerd, I was listening to Lincoln's presser on the way down here. The one that stood out to me was one of the more physical safeties, if not one of the most physical players on defense as a whole. To hear that as a true freshman, and Tackett's another guy that's kind of in that category as well, you just have to be excited about it. And it just shows, I know we're reiterating this point again, but it just shows how well USC has recruited this offseason, especially on the defensive side of the football, where, it's no secret there were some issues last year, especially with tackling. We're getting these physical players that are coming out and showing right away. I know there's no pads on yet. They did get them in the spring, but as soon as they get full pads and fall camp and continue to build off of that momentum, USC sounds like they're in great hands.
Alrighty. Any other thoughts, Cody, before we go to questions?
No. And again, if we covered as many storylines as we've heard that have been out in the presser, there's going to be a ton more. Yeah. There's going to be a ton more. Obviously, we're going to dive more into the offense, the wide receiver, the quarterback position. I'm excited to talk about. But yeah, it's just a ton of information for the first couple of days, and yeah, USC football's back, so I'm excited. Exciting.
Alrighty. First one is about USC's offense and Caleb. Zach said, will Caleb Williams have more control over the offense this year? How would that look different and translate on the field?
Yeah, I think he will. Absolutely. I think the way that it'll look different, though, and it won't be a huge difference because obviously as a quarterback and your offensive coordinator who also happens to be your head coach and Lincoln Riley, your relationship's like this, right? When I was here with Coach Sark, Coach Kiffin, when you're the starting quarterback, I mean, you're hand in hand at all times. You understand before he even says it or before Caleb gets a thought out, they know exactly what the other one's thinking. I just think the way it may look a little different is we'll see less of Caleb looking to the sideline on some of those ghost type plays, right? And if you've never heard the podcast before, I've explained the ghost plays. That's the one where you get up, green, set go, or set hut, whatever it may be. There's no play call. Then we look to the sideline. Lincoln will signal, and then we go just to get the defense to show their hand. I wouldn't be surprised to see Caleb more of green, set go, or set hut, whatever their cadence is, and then he calls the play himself, and then we go.
Sorry, that just took me back because
the green, set go.
Yeah,
that was our cadence. I know. With Kiffin, it was like set go, green 80, set hut, and then with Sark, it was green, set go, doing the ghost plays and stuff. But and then the NFL, it's mixed around. But yeah, but that was my example, poorly executed of my old cadence back when I was here.
I always thought it was green means go, and then I met you for this podcast,
I think
and
you
you
said
were
that
like,
before.
no.
Well, it was like green, set go was
Green means go.
Yeah, green, set go, and then there was like red, set go, blue. They all meant something different. Like blue was on 2. You know, stuff you could pick up obviously on defense, but it was for us as an offense to understand better. But yeah, no, overall, getting off topic here a little bit. I think we'll see more of Caleb not looking to the sideline as much, saying, "Hey, Link, I got it. I know what I'm doing here."
I mean, he was doing that last year, but yes.
Yeah, a couple times I think he did it. I don't want to say on purpose, but maybe he didn't hear Lincoln calling at him.
One of them was a touchdown. I remember that being a funny moment.
I think it was Notre Dame game, right?
I think so. It's a blur.
Yeah, but Lincoln said that, hey, I was trying to get his attention, and he just kind of waved me off a little bit like a pitcher in baseball. But,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think Caleb will absolutely have a lot more control this year on offense.
Interesting question from Anthony in LA. He said, what would you say to Caleb to encourage more throwaways and less trying to make something out of nothing? Do you discuss his health and maybe even the perspective that NFL scouts like to see the ability to move on to the next play?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's tough, though. I struggle so much with this, and this has been my only, I don't want to say knock, but my only,
criticism?
I don't want to say, critique sounds bad, too, though, because it's so much of who he is as a player.
Right.
But you do have, I guess, complaint, right? Like
sure.
Just a formal anonymous complaint that I'm putting in.
Sure.
Is that you have to think of your health. You have to think of next level. I know he's focused on this season alone, but for any player, right? You play college football to win championships, to win Heismans, to win trophies, to do all those things, but also to make it to the ultimate goal, to the NFL, right? So I think that's a big factor for that. But I'm so hesitant to really make this a huge talking point because you don't want to take away from his Houdini type play style, but there are times last season when the play was dead, right? There was really no way out of it, but that's tough to say because there were other times when you thought the play was dead and somehow he came out of the pile and turned a -5 into a +20.
There's positive reinforcement that makes you.
There's proof in the product of him where I'm like, I'm watching the game from the sideline or doing Trojan tailgate, whatever it is, finishing up on the sideline going, hey, throw it away. And then he breaks off and goes for an extra 20 or finds a receiver downfield. But I think there does need to be a happy medium of, hey, okay, I can still make these plays. I can still be Houdini. I can put the team on my back sometimes when the play breaks down. But I also got to understand when to throw it away, when to slide, eliminate some of those hits. Because, yes, I would love to see Caleb have a great future, and I would hate for anything to happen on an unnecessary play.
Of course. I know I talked earlier about like the quote-unquote Keely observations. The oh, wow, USC has a Heisman quarterback coming back moment happened in a Houdini play where I was like, how in the world did he do that?
That's
and
why,
it was just like, okay,
we're
back.
I'm hesitant, and I'm sure a lot of Trojan fans would agree with me is there's it's a very thin line of be smart and protect yourself, but also make these game-winning plays, these drive-saving plays that become explosive plays. It gets that when you make plays like that, it's not just sparking the offense. When your defense is on the sideline watching you, knowing we have a player like Caleb Williams at quarterback, and it might be a little slow start to a game, and then he breaks off a top 10 type play, it'll spark the entire team, right? It gets everybody excited. So it's so tough. I don't want to handcuff him. I don't want to say, throw it away, or take a knee, slide, do whatever you need to do, get it, protect yourself when that's such a big part of his game. But I would like to see from a former quarterback, a Trojan fan that wants to win that championship, I'd like to see him be a little bit more careful and take care of himself in situations where he can.
No, that makes sense. That's fair. Almost said, how does Lincoln Riley utilize and maintain the stacked running back room? I don't want anyone to transfer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question, and obviously I don't think anyone at this point can transfer anymore, right? The transfer window's over, but looking into next offseason is if guys aren't used right, and that's part of the problem with having a stacked quarterback, running back, receiver room is that not everybody's going to get to play, right? There's not going, and I saw Won't mention any names, but I saw some people coming after me about the receiver saying, hey, this guy needs more praise, or talk about this guy more. Running back as well. Talk about this guy more. I do, but it's tough because there's so many good players, and it's not that guys filter out, but it's just that you feed the hot hand, right? And if you have 7 or 8 guys that can get hot and become big-time players, it's tough to feed everybody, right? So for the running back position, again, I know we talked about Austin Jones, Marshawn Lloyd, the 2 freshmen, Darwin Barlow as well. It's definitely a stacked room. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we can keep all of them. Hopefully these freshmen this upcoming season, if they don't have to play, and they may get a chance this season if they have a great camp and things happen. But, I really see the rotation being Darwin, Austin, and Marshawn, and then having the freshman redshirter get a couple plays here and there and still save that year. But, yeah, I would hate to see anybody redshirt or anybody transfer at the end of the year. Yeah. But it's tough when you have such stacked rooms that it's almost obvious that someone's going to have to leave.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's a good and a bad problem, absolutely.
Yeah. David had a question about the defense. He said, Cody, a lot is being said about the defensive line being undersized with regard to weight outside of Keon Bars and Bear Alexander. In your experience, how much does weight factor in for those non-interior guys not lining up over the center/guard?
Yeah, I think it's the interior guys where the weight comes from, right? The Antoine Woods of the world, the Keon Bars, the Aaron Donalds, right? Those shorter, a little bit heavier inside guys have fast twitch, but they're more for run stopping, bull rush, pushing over the offensive lineman, filling those gaps. I don't think size is too important when it comes to a rush edge position, when it comes to, a stand-up defensive end. I like that guy to be, yes, you want him around the 230 to 250, 260 range around there, but you don't typically see a rush edge that's 300 plus, right? That's coming off the edge of the line of scrimmage. Thule is a great example. His size is perfect for that spot, right? He's not a huge guy, not a big physical, don't get me wrong, but he's not a big bull rush guy that uses his, low center of gravity. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's more so he uses athleticism, his quickness paired up with his size and strength to be a great outside rusher, and I think that's more important than size when it comes to getting to the quarterback going against these offensive tackles.
SPHE Bus Realtor said, Cody, will the Trojans have a top 50 defense this season?
We need to, absolutely. If our aspirations are, which I know they are college football playoff and beyond, and going to the national championship or at least Pac-12 championship and beyond, and going to the college football playoff, we need to have a top 50 defense. Yes, we can get away with our offense winning so many games and putting up huge points and getting in these shootouts. But when it comes down to those tougher opponents, you have to be able to make some stops. And I think being a top 50 defense is absolutely something that can happen. It's just about going out and doing it now.
That Daddy Manny, which is funny because I feel like he's usually just a Cody 2-minute drill.
Yeah, we got a couple from him on the 2-minute. Yeah.
I love it. More questions. He said, which opposing quarterback will be the biggest threat to USC's defense?
That's tough. Guy that jumps off Notre Dame, Sam Hartman, was a really good player. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in college football. Just transferred in. I think Jaden DeLora, I can't not admit him. He's a guy that played very well against us last year. Very athletic type quarterback. A little bit, obviously not on Caleb's level, but that type of player. Mm-hmm. And then the one I know that USC fans are I don't want to say reluctant to go against, but have a little bit of chip on their shoulder, Cam Rising. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be kind of priority one. And then 2 guys we haven't faced yet, we have no idea how they're going to be, Michael Penix Jr. and then Bo Nix, obviously. But I'm kind of going off of guys that we've seen before. So, yeah, it's the list goes on and on. It's going to be a tough year. There's going to be some great opposing quarterbacks and opposing offenses. But what better way to test this defense in year 2 to go against some of these great power offenses in the country?
You didn't answer the question.
I'm going to go overall. Let's go Bo Nix. I'll go Bo Nix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Just I think his versatility. He's passer, runner, can do that. But the good thing about that is our defense goes against Caleb Williams every day. Mm-hmm. The best combined all-around quarterback in college football. So when we play these other guys, and not going to say it's going to be easier, but the practices are hard so that game days are easier.
We had a question from Fighting On MC who said, Coach Odom describes Tackett Curtis as a tackling machine. Could we possibly see another Taylor Mays? And do you really see him getting playing time as a freshman? I know we addressed some of this.
Yeah, absolutely. After the comments made today, even if in spring, I know we were a little hard on him and saying that he's got a ways to go, which he does. He still does. But the turn that he's made from spring into fall right now, and even really the end of spring, effort was always there, right? Physicality was always there. It was just learning the playbook, understanding college football speed, and taking that next step to being able to play fast, aggressive, physical, but also playing within himself, right? Not being out of control. It seems like, especially from what Coach Odom said, he's taken that next step. Now to compare him to Taylor Mays, that's a long ways away, right? I mean, I'm sure, and Taylor's on the staff as well.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's what better person to learn from when it comes to wanting to compare someone to Taylor Mays and Taylor Mays himself.
Right.
But obviously, Tackett's got a long way to go. And what's awesome is that you can tell by the way he cares about the game, and we touched on this earlier, by his dedication, his love of the game, wanting to get better, is I don't think he's ever going to try to compare himself to anyone else or try to, and you may take assets from other people's games or take, different things that they did well and try to apply it to yourself, but you're still your own person, right? But there's so many USC greats to look up to and compared to that. I mean, the coaching, the way he's played his high school tape, taking those next step from spring to fall, sky's the limit for him is the way it's sounding right now.
Interestingly enough, we got 3 special teams questions. We haven't really gotten special teams questions in like months, so yeah. it all converged. Franklin said punt return and kickoff returns. Who do you got for our best starter?
I think I'm going to go with a 2-way tie, maybe 3-way tie for that right now. I'm going to go Michael Jackson, Zachariah Branch, and Rayleigh Brown. Those are the 3 that it's tough for me to pick one right now, especially since we haven't seen a ton of special teams or even talked about it a whole lot. But if you had to tell me a game was tomorrow and give me a group of guys that can rotate or go out there right now, those are probably the 3 I would pick.
I would probably go with that too. Also, something to come out of in-house media day, we got to talk to Rayleigh Brown for the first time because Riley has a policy that true freshmen can't speak to the media until they go through a full year.
I like that.
I think it's super helpful for them.
I like that.
I was finally able to say, is it Raleigh or Raleigh? And he said his family says both. And I was like, well, which one do you like? I want to do the one that you like. And he was like, Raleigh. So
okay,
there you go.
I apologize.
No, you're fine. Raleigh. I think you and I have switched off this whole time. So.
Yeah, well, I've listened to the broadcast of the games as well. It's always been Rayleigh, or I've heard a couple different ones. So okay, for future reference, though, Rayleigh Brown. I mean,
as someone with a unique name, I understand.
Good thing is I haven't met him yet, though, so I don't.
Wow.
I haven't said it wrong yet, so he didn't correct me yet. So now I know.
Eric said there has been a lot of talk in the offseason about special teams. Last season, Coach Lincoln Riley caught heat over not having a designated coach for special teams. Do you think special teams might hurt the Trojans this season?
I hope not. I
don't think we would ever say, yeah, we think it'll hurt.
Well, but that's a good point, though, because there were times last year that it absolutely did hurt. And there were some head-scratching moments. And I'm not, and obviously Lincoln's already said this, so I'm not saying anything that's a secret. There were some times on the special team side of the ball, whether it was return or coverage, that we needed to be a little bit better. There were some gaping holes there that were some glaring issues that were not just, hey, let's pass over these, let's talk about it a little bit. They kept reoccurring, and it became kind of a theme, and we got a lot of questions throughout the season as well about that. We need to address special teams. We need to address special teams, which is absolutely true. But I think Coach Riley, obviously being in his second year at USC, is something that he's not going to take lightly, and I would fully expect to see that fixed this year.
Eric said, will Zachariah Branch have at least 1 touchdown on special teams? I'm going to go with yes.
I hope so. I really do. How cool would it be? I'm completely getting off topic here, going so far ahead. How cool would it be like opening day? Like week 0 game, like taking one to the house to start the season, or even like throughout the game at some point.
That'd be really cool.
Any of those guys though, taking one back to the house on the first game of the year.
Well, that would be his first play.
Yeah.
In college.
Yeah.
That'd be wild. I want to know the stats on that. Like,
I'll
how
say
many
this
people
though:
have done that?
if he is back there a good amount this year, I absolutely think he will take one to the house.
Agreed.
Punt or kick, either one.
Agreed. He has an elusiveness that is bound
He's
to
such an explosive player.
Yeah. Yeah. Alex said, can this USC team peak at the second half of the season and still win all the early games? If so, how?
Yeah, I would love to see. It's tough too because when you come out in a season, especially, and it's not saying a lesser opponent, but yeah, no offense, it is absolutely. When you start with those early, like the easier opponents to start the season off, don't overlook them. We've seen plenty of the Appalachian State games. We've seen
Sure.
the Michigan Appalachian State. We've seen those upsets from week 1 if you're not coming out ready to go. But I think that's where you kind of build off and get that momentum those first couple of games, like last year with Rice, with Fresno State. building that momentum so you kind of hit the ground running when you get into conference play, when you get into those tougher opponents. But it has to be, if we want to take it to the next level, if we want to see a team playing in January, playing in a New Year's Six Bowl, playing in the college football playoff, there has to be steady throughout the whole year. Yeah, there might be a week or two where there's a little bit of drop-off, where things may stall out for one game, but the really good teams, the great teams, only have one game and then they get right back on track, right? And they don't lose those games. They find a way to win those games like we did against Oregon State. The offense stalled out a little bit. It was tough. And then we came back. Our defense played really well. Caleb came back at the end of the game, hit Jordan Addison for a touchdown on a whole shot in cover 2, which was awesome. But you can't have those back-to-back games where it's a little bit lackluster, where you kind of fall. And I'm not saying that we had that last year. The Utah game, obviously, we played really well. They ended up winning at the end. But there was a little concern when we got to Cal, when we got to Arizona. It felt like we kind of dropped off a little bit, and then obviously we finished strong with UCLA, Notre Dame. But to be a championship football team, you have to keep that throughout the entire season. If you have one game that's a little off, you have to absolutely pick it up the following week.
We had a question from Will, who said, who do you believe will be the captains this upcoming season?
I'm going to go offense. I'm going to go Caleb and Dedich. I think those two guys will be on offense. And then defense, I mean, Shane Lee was a captain last year. It's tough to take away a captain from someone who you know is a leader, who's a vet on that side of the football. I think Kalen Bullock has a case.
Yeah.
Who was the other captain? Was it Thule? Thule and Shane last year on defense, right? So I think Shane will probably keep that. But, I mean, there's Mason. He's a newcomer. I would say he's a transfer guy, and it's crazy to see. But Shane last year was a transfer guy and was a captain in year 1. So, yeah, offense, I'm going to go Caleb and Dedich, and then defense, I'm going to go Shane and Kalen for defensive captains. Now, again, I have no idea. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know leadership-wise how these guys are, but if I just had to make a guess, those would be my 4.
We got a question from Sam, who said, wearing padded helmets seems to become the norm during practices. Are they worn to reduce the risk of concussions? If they are and they're effective, do you think they'll become mandatory to wear during actual games in the future?
Yeah, I love the padded helmets at practice, especially for the offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, guys that are hitting on every single play. It absolutely lessens the contact. Now, I don't know the full how much percentage that takes away all of that, but I do know, I don't think we'll ever see them in games, but I do know that helmet technology, and this is just from my own experience in the NFL, I wore a certain type of helmet my entire career, and I remember when I got to Philadelphia, they said, hey, what helmet do you wear? And I requested the same one. They said, oh, those were banned last year. They didn't pass the new safety regulations. So me saying that is I don't think we'll ever see the padded helmets, but I absolutely know that helmet safety and the type of helmets that they're creating nowadays are a lot safer than what they used to be. Obviously, football continues to advance. But, yeah, I think the padded helmets at practice are awesome. I think they should always – I think every team should adapt that. I think those should be mandatory, especially when it's full go, fall camp, day in and day out, all these hits leading up to a season before the games even start. Would absolutely love to see all teams do that.
Jake said, I was listening to the defensive breakdown, and the number 55 came up. In regards to the 55 at SC, is it given out by the coaching staff, or is it requested? I always thought that the coaching staff gave it out, but by the way that Cody was talking about it, it made me think the opposite.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, and I've obviously never played defense, and I wasn't, ever in the running to wear 55, but I'm pretty sure it has to be requested, and then the coaching staff, or it could be the opposite. That's a great question. It could be, hey, we want to give you the honor of wearing 55, and then the player could either, accept it or deny it, or the player requests 55. But I remember when Lamar Dawson came here, I'm pretty sure he was 55 in high school. That was his number. You know what? Don't quote me on that. But I remember him, I'm pretty sure he requested it. And then he had to get approved to wear it. He was a high recruit, too. It wasn't like he was a walk-on guy saying, hey, give me 55. He had to earn the right to wear it. But I would love to see someone wearing 55. And I was just thinking about that the other day when we talked about it. I mean, just all the great players, Keith Rivers, Chris Claiborne, guys that Junior Seau obviously kind of set the tone for 55. All these guys that made that number so great, I would love to see that continued, that legacy carried on. Now, how that happens, if the players are going to ask someone to wear it or if the players request it. I did see some comments, though. I don't remember if it was YouTube or Twitter it was like a video talking about Tackett, and some people, I think there was like 2 or 3 comments about, hey, go ask for 55. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully someday or sometime soon someone requests it. But, yeah, I'm not really sure how that fully works out.
Yeah, we should look into that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see.
We got a question from Chris who said, how should USC view this last season in the Pac-12? What do they take away from this season? What's interesting is
go ahead. You know how I feel about the Pac-12. I'm
Oh yeah, you're such a hater.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in such an interesting / weird, if I may say, time of college football right now.
Yeah.
It's evolving.
It is.
So quickly. Every day there's a new storyline about what's going to happen to the conference itself, to football. It's wild.
Well, the craziest part too is that it's the last year of the Pac-12, and it's probably the strongest the Pac-12 has ever been.
Which is unfortunate.
It's kind of like it's crazy because you've got 4 or 5 teams that are going to be preseason top 25 that will probably also finish in the top 25. You got a couple teams on the bubble that could jump into the top 25, and next year, not none, but majority of these teams are going to be gone, right? And now it's talks about other teams leaving as well, or who's gonna go elsewhere. Is the Pac-12 even going to be a Power 5 conference anymore? It's just crazy with how many good teams there are this year that won't be here next year. And like I said, it's the strongest the Pac-12 has ever been, but it's also the last year that it'll ever be.
To Chris's question, I feel like USC just has such a rich tradition in this conference that you go out with the strongest you can. You go out with a bang. I know that's what they want to do regardless of what's happening to the conference, but I mean, it just feels like this is the mark you leave.
Yeah, the only right send-off is to win the Pac-12 and drop the mic and walk off and let's go to the Big Ten. And again, I'm not hating on the Pac-12. Obviously, I played in the Pac-12 and stuff, but it's just frustrating at times.
Yeah.
When you see other conferences getting the TV spots, getting the praise they do, getting the, I don't want to say not leeway, but just getting a little bit more of a burdens when they get. Is that the right word to say, burdens? What's the word I'm looking for here?
Credit.
Credence. What I'm saying, when it comes to the college football playoff, a 1 or 2 loss team or a 1 loss team in the SEC is a little bit.
They get more leeway.
Yeah, leeway. They get a little bit more leeway when it comes to a 1 loss, Pac-12 team, and I think that's been something that's frustrated a lot of USC fans as well.
Oh, for sure. Push 55 said, if you could add a game day tradition to USC, think jump around, wide out, etc., what would it be?
Bias was the word I was looking for, by the way. SEC bias, not Pac-12 bias. There we go, going backwards. But to this question, that's a great question. I think just off the top of my head, first thing that came to mind is something to do with the torch. Maybe get the fan. I know Traveler runs on the field and it goes dark, and maybe get the fans a little more involved with the lighting of the torch.
Interesting.
I don't know how you would do that. Maybe a song or playing Conquest or something, and the fans sing it, and then when it ends, the torch lights up as well, or whatever it may be. I honestly, I've only seen that a handful of times.
What?
Because I've been playing. We're always playing. We're not really paying attention. We're on the sideline doing all that, so you don't really pay attention.
Because it's in between third and fourth.
Is there a fan moment involved in that, or is it just kind of Traveler rides on the field and then points the sword up and it lights up?
That's pretty much it.
I feel like if we did do something like that, it would have to be during that time, because that's a very unique thing that we do in college football. The lighting of the torch, I think, is awesome.
But I don't know what you would do.
Yeah. I don't know.
If anyone has suggestions,
let us know.
Please.
Yeah, that's a great question.
A couple more questions from me. Chris said, Cody, when you were playing for SC, who was the strongest guy on the team?
Strongest guy on the team when I was here?
Emotionally or physically? Just kidding.
I'll tell you, probably just raw physical strength. Soma Vanuku jumps to mind. First of all, he was the most physical. Soma Vanuku on kickoff.
He was
is
a
the
monster
reason,
on special teams.
Is probably one of the reasons that there's been some changes to the rules, both in college and the NFL. I'm not joking. If you go, I wouldn't be surprised if why some of these NFL or college or they're making changes to the rules. If you put his tape on from kickoff days, he would be literally example A of why we're changing some of the rules. I mean,
goodness.
His flying 40, and Coach Baxter used to call him that flying 40s, how fast you could run on kickoff, 40-yard sprint before you got to the ball carrier, was unbelievable. People forget, he was big, he was physical, he was fullback. He was a running back in high school, and I think he ran in the low 4.5s in his 40-yard dash. He was that dominant. But first guy that pops to mind, and I'm sure there's some other I'm forgetting. Porter Gustin, obviously, he was always very big, strong, physical guy. I only got to play with him, I think, for a year. But
wow.
But for the time I was there, I would say Soma Vanuku jumps to mind first.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
We got a fun question from Sam. He said,
bring it on, Sam.
You have to take part in a tag team wrestling match.
Okay.
Which current USC football player are you picking as your tag team partner and why?
I'm going Dedich.
Ooh.
Easy. Easy. Quarterback center.
I was about to say, that's such a cliche
He's
answer.
used to blocking those big physical guys up front. He's blocking Bear every day. He's blocking Keon every day. When you're in the trenches, especially on the interior, he'll be able to move some guys around. I'm going D-ditch.
The first person that popped in my head was Solomon Tuliaupupu.
Yeah.
Because he just seems like he'll...
That's another guy, too, Solo. I didn't realize how big he was until I saw the walking. I sat there like a little kid fan the other day. I literally watched every single player come out of the tunnel.
That's
just
amazing.
Watching them on the first day. But yeah, he'd be a good one too.
I feel like he just had the fight to never
I realize
stop.
how big some of these guys are too. You can
Well,
absolutely
that's also,
see
like,
Coach Wiley, the off-season strength program. Like I don't remember watching on game days last year for the Trojan tailgate being there early. That physicality or just look-wise, the eye test. I don't remember that from last year.
Yeah, it's something I've noticed. Yeah, that or Tackett Curtis.
Yeah,
just because he'd bully some people.
Yeah, he'd be. I feel like Tackett would be the guy though, like flying off the top ropes. Like, yeah, exactly.
And then one more question, and it's once again interesting we got this in our segment, not your segment.
Okay.
It's from Alyssa Bubbles, who says, "Tell your mom she better be excited to see me."
Okay. Shout out Alyssa for the newcomers. Alyssa, I feel like we explain it every week because
I know.
I think Alyssa's done with the football questions. She just just shouts out the show all the time.
Sure.
She's been a day one though, so we can't hate on her.
We had to respect.
It was my mom's former student. She's no longer there, but okay. Without other questions.
That is, which means I have random.org.
Oh, we're doing emoji time.
Emoji.
I was ready to
time.
jump into the 2 minute.
I know you were. And I made sure to make a note on my computer.
We've got an I don't want to say all time, but we're up there for a new record, pretty high.
I feel like we've gotten into the 60s before, but
during season, I think we did. Yeah.
But you can tell we're trending into season.
Off season record right here. Okay, so we got 1 through 45.
Okay.
For the off season numbers, we have random.org up, and whenever you're ready.
Already 26. 26
is at sorry_dude.
Okay. I love that.
I'm pretty sure that's
sorry, dude.
Yeah, no, I think that guy's name is Matt. Hold on, let me double check. I feel like he's been it is. So Matt it doesn't say last name, it's Matt, and then his username is at sorry_dude. I know he's been around for a while because I've seen it a ton.
You recognize that, Abby?
Yeah, so congratulations, he follows both of us and he hasn't won before. So congratulations to Matt, aka Sorry Dude.
Sorry Dude.
You are this week's emoji giveaway winner. So again, for those of you who don't know, the options are, and then Matt, obviously you'll be this week, are a USC hat, a USC short sleeve t-shirt, a USC long sleeve t-shirt, or a USC sweatshirt.
One of the 4.
Yeah, one of the 4, and then it can either be signed. We've had multiple requests. It can be unsigned if you don't want any signature just to wear it around, or it can be signed by myself, or it can be signed by Keely, or it can be signed by both of us, which we've had.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all, but we've had all of those done before. And then for future reference, to enter the next emoji giveaway, which we're about to do those emojis in a second, you have to be following myself, Keely, and the Victory Pod on Twitter if you tweet the emojis. And then if you send it to Victory Pod or myself on Instagram, you have to be following on Instagram as well, myself, Keely, or the Victory Pod on Instagram for a chance to win. And with that being said, it's time for this week's emojis.
I have pre-thought about this.
I did too.
CD.
Okay, we're going CD, and I'm going to go with, I'm sticking to the sports theme, which I've done the last couple times. I'm going to go with a Frisbee.
Oh.
It's in the sports section, kind of random.
Okay, so it's just like circle.
Yeah, it's like a blue Frisbee. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, we'll go CD Frisbee.
Okay.
It rhymes.
We'll make it easy.
Perfect.
Less confusing this round.
But yeah, again, so tweet, Instagram, whatever you got to do, you got to be following us on all 3 platforms or all 3 accounts on either platform. And then we will pick a new random.org winner next week as well. Yeah, and then we're getting into season 2, which there's been some chirps about tickets. I don't know. We did that for Notre Dame last year.
I know.
We're trying to make that happen. We're going to reset, though. We've got the question before about if we've won before. Right now, we're still doing just first-time winners.
Yeah.
But then when season starts, week 0 starts, we're going to completely reset and come up with some different winning options this year as well. And, yeah.
Now I got to toss it over to you.
Now it's time for it's the favorite part of the show.
Cody 2-minute, 4-minute, 10-minute drill. It was supposed to be a 2-minute drill, but you just go very long. But this is where Cody reads and answers questions from his own personal Instagram.
So I put out, if you don't follow me on Instagram, I put out an Instagram question box either the morning of, if it's a later podcast. Speaking of that, it's 9:45. We've been here.
Can I just say,
super late.
Apologies. I know that I am very tired in this episode, and I really do apologize.
I'll say this, though. To your credit, Keely you've been here since what, like 4 a.m., 5 a.m.?
I'm going on my 14th hour here at USC right now.
Yeah, and it's not like you've been sitting around for 14 hours.
No,
You've been covering practice, editing, dealing with me, calling you before I come down. You're like, hey, you want to put this in? You want to do that?
Not my strongest, just like Damani. Average, I'll come back stronger.
There you go. First episode, a little average, then we come back stronger and keep love it. Love it. That's the mindset to follow. We're going to keep that Damani mindset. But in your defense,
yes,
or not even defense, just shows how much we love the show, right? We could have.
Oh yeah.
You could have easily texted me and said, hey, I'm too tired. Let's do it another day. But you wanted to get the episode out. I drove through 2.5 hours of traffic.
I have to give a super shout out to you
after giving quarterback workouts and stuff too all week. So
you love this podcast like it's your own, and I really appreciate it.
We really do. I love the interaction with all the fans too. Now we're doing YouTube as well, a whole new set of fans. So
fun.
That's normally my outro, so I'm getting far ahead. But here we go. All right, we'll start with the Instagram questions.
I am setting your timer. Yes,
and then
go for it.
Also, if this is your first time listening, these used to go like 20 minutes because
they were so
now we've
long.
tightened it down to about 4 or 5 minutes. So I try to go faster now with these. Here we go.
We.
First question from Brian_Zarksky. He said, are there any standout players that are exceeding expectations in the first week? I think just going back to the freshmen. That's
it's
the first
wild.
thing that sticks out. Tackett Curtis, Braylon as well. Christian Pierce getting some love. Some of these younger guys are really standing out and making a name for themselves, and we mentioned some other ones earlier in the pod as well. The next one's from Anthony Kessler, who's my uncle. He said, as you came up through the ranks, how did you deal with people and the media? Keely's laughing because I would deal with them by blocking them if I didn't like them.
Yep.
No, I tried to stay away from the media. Obviously, you get more and more attention the more you play, and then being the starting quarterback at USC LA, a huge media market, I had to grow up fast. I had to learn that very quickly. And then obviously my first year, we had the coaching change with Kiffin to Coach O. A lot of stuff got thrown at me being the starter for the first time. But yeah, you get more and more comfortable the more you do it. And then obviously being at USC in such a strong media market prepared me so much for the NFL and how hectic that can be. The next one is from That Daddy Manny, who had two of them actually, as well as his Twitter question. He said, per the last podcast, it seems that the team has been spending a lot of time together. And then the second part of that was, how does this impact their on-field performance? Just like I said, I love that camaraderie, that continuity that you build off the field, right?
Yeah.
Really getting to know guys, because you're on the field, you're with your position groups, offense splits, defense goes over here, O-line over here, D-line over here. Yes, you can build that relationship through the blood, sweat, and tears on the practice field, in the weight room, film room, all of that. But when you have a team that has each other's back and that really gets along in the locker room and outside of the football facilities, that's when you know you're really building that brotherhood. I love what they did the other day. I don't know if it was tonight or the off day. They went to the movies as a team. Just being around each other in a different setting outside of football, you really get to see a different side of these guys.
Relaxed
it makes
setting.
it makes you want to play for them a little bit more too, and really trust your brother and know that, hey, everything we're going through in fall camp right now, you're going through it with me as well, and you're playing for the man next to you. The next one is from Kevbo55. Peyton had a Omaha. What are some of your favorite calls, audibles, etc. in the NFL?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, Omaha. I'm pretty sure Omaha was a cadence term for Peyton. I'm pretty sure that was Omaha set hut, like hurry up offense. Ours was, we'd always say Sunday set hut. Was one I would use a ton in the NFL. We'd have hand signals more so at SC. It's gone now, so I can use now. I love the sluggo check, which was sluggo seam. Checked that. I actually think I checked, I don't think it was sluggo, but my first ever touchdown against Hawaii was an audible at the line.
Oh.
And funny story, I called the protection wrong. I called the routes right, but I called the protection wrong.
Whoopsie.
So there was a second there where the O-line was like, but the play clock was running down, so we just did it. Ended up throwing a corner to
Nelson.
Nelson.
What was the O-line like?
They looked at me like, wait a minute. And they all kind of gave me like a quick hesitant. And before I could do anything, I said, hey, set hut. And we went. Worked out. I think I got hit for it too, and it was my fault, so I took the blame. But yeah, Sunday was when we used a ton. That was just kind of getting everybody, hey, let's go, Sunday, set hut, hurry up, stuff like that. But we were a lot more hand signals when I was here, checking sluggo, checking corners, slants, all that stuff.
Interesting.
But my favorite, I'll say, audible hand signal of all time was when I first got here. We had hang loose, which was a fade, hang loose, go deep. No thought about it. You're just running a fade ball. You'd be under center, do this, look out to the receiver, give them a little hang loose, and they're taking off and running. So that would probably be my favorite.
That's fun.
The next one, though, is from McKenna Poe said, do you still visit Bakersfield? I do. Yeah, I've been doing some quarterback training down here in Irvine, but I've gone back and held a couple workouts in Bakersfield as well over the summer. I'll go back for holidays, visit family and stuff like that. The next one is from XXGabe_CrickXX. What was one of the best lessons learned about being a student athlete? Don't procrastinate. And I still do it to this day.
That's a life lesson there.
But yeah, don't procrastinate. During season I wasn't as bad, but the best thing for me was to try to get all the schoolwork out of the way early so I could study film, so I could watch tape that week, so I could really dive into the game plan that week. It was tough on a Thursday or Friday trying to finalize the game plan and also still having a 5-page paper to write that I could have done on Monday, right? Yeah. So biggest thing for me was, and I know it's tough, it's in all aspects of life, but do not procrastinate. It'll help you so much to where you can get all your schoolwork done and then focus on football.
Yeah.
The next one's from Trojan Mom 06. What was your favorite part of fall camp at USC? Just being with the guys, just being, it was, you spend more time when football season starts as a player and a coach. You spend more time with your teammates and coaching staff than you do your actual family. And in college, more than you do your girlfriend, your mom, your dad, especially the out-of-state guys, even in-state guys. You spend more time with your brothers on the football team, with your coaching staff, with the training room, with everybody that's a part of the football operations. You spend more time with them than your entire family, everybody else. Yeah. So, that was my favorite part, just being around those guys day in and day out. And just working together. The next one is from John Thornton 949. What does the Big Ten take who does the Big Ten take if the Pac-9 collapses? We're already calling it the Pac-9.
Goodness.
I don't think they're going to take anyone else. I think it'll be...
It came out today. It seems like UW and Oregon are like trying to
for the Big Ten.
Yeah, into their way.
Wow.
In. Yeah.
I mean, I would not be opposed to that. I think that'd be awesome. That would be a lot of teams on one conference.
Yeah.
That would.
What do you have to rename it, right?
Yeah, you'd have to rename it, and it makes it tougher to win the conference. So I don't know.
Competitive Cody is now activated.
I mean, if you think about it, though, I mean, that's
it helps,
or maybe
travel
not. Maybe travel wise, it'll help not having a couple West Coast games. But I mean, I'm all for it. If Oregon and Washington are coming with us as well as UCLA.
You're wishy-washy, but okay.
Let's do it. It's like you said, it's changing so much. I try not to guess or figure it out anymore. I just kind of sit back and watch.
Yeah,
and that started with like the transfer portal, all this stuff, like NIL now. I'm just sitting back and watching college football unfold and all the new things that are happening.
It just evolves so quickly. I feel like you can't even have time to have a full like one thing happens and the next thing.
Yeah, so it's NIL. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Now it's transfer portal. Okay, great. That now it's all these conferences changing. Great. Okay, now it's other teams are going to join in. So it's just it's always evolving, but it makes it fun. It makes it interesting. I love the way that college football is going right now. I just am interested to see when that's going to kind of level out and die down and everything's going to become normalized. Next one is from Chewelu. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. Chewelu. Are the different focuses for each week of the fall camp from your experiences? I think you missed a what. What are the different focuses for each week of the fall camp from your experience? It depends. Like first week's normally kind of basic install. You do build up a little bit. So it'll be day 1 through 4 or 5 will be first 5 days of installing the basic offense. Then you get into week 2, then it'll be maybe third downs, red zone, gotta have it plays like your Hail Marys, your trick, stuff like that, and it'll do special teams. So it'll mix up. Everybody does it a little different, but normally it goes basic install, what the offense, what the defense is, then we go third down, then we go red zone, and then we can get into gadget, different type of plays like that. And then the scrimmages, you have the whole playbook installed, and now you're kind of just going over everything. The next one is from Turley Not Carter. How do you think the Steelers are going to be this year? This is one of the kids I trained, so his name's Carter. Shout out Carter. He's one of the kids I trained back in Bakersfield. I don't know, bud. I hopefully I'm not a Steelers fan, but I've worked with him a couple times now. Cute. I'm not a Steelers fan, but we'll see. Kenny Pickett's looking pretty good this offseason. I know he had a really good OTAs going into fall camp. I've heard he's been playing pretty well. George Pickens is playing well. That defense is always good, so we'll see. It'll be a fun team to watch this year. The AFC North's going to be tough. You've got the Bengals are playing well. The Ravens are always going to be good. Browns are kind of hit and miss a little bit right now, so that's potential to have 4 good teams in that conference. And then the last one, again, is from Melissa Bubbles. You're never going to get rid of me to the podcast.
Wow.
So, good, fine. We love the interaction. We love the lifelong fans, the commitment. I did have one more that I screenshotted from Twitter, so I lied. That was not the last one. It is from Ed. He said, random question for the pod. Cody, if you can have any 2 players on this year's USC offense, not named Zachariah or Deuce, and 2 players of USC's defense to add to one of your seasons at USC, who would it be and why?
Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah, offense.
They're all good, but
offense is tough. I mean, you obviously look to the freshmen automatically.
Also, he kind of jibbed you a little bit.
I know, by taking away Deuce and Zachariah. That's fine though. They still got to prove themselves. So I'm going to go from current players. I don't know. I mean, my mind as a quarterback obviously goes to skill position wise, because offensive line we were pretty solid, and I'm not saying this would replace anybody, but I'm going to go skill position. I'm going to go Mario, and let's go Brendan. Brendan played really well at the end of last year. I think he's trending in the right direction. I think Mario and Brendan would be awesome to have on offense, to have 2 guys at receiver at my disposal, with already adding that to Nelson, Juju, all those guys that we already had. And then defensively, I'm going to go with, I think Kalen Bullock would have been awesome as a safety, obviously an All-American, a really good player. And then I'm going to go as well with, I don't know. I'm gonna say Eric Gentry. I think it would have been interesting to see how Eric would have fit to our defense as well, with guys like Dion, Wasua, Hayes Pillard, those type of linebackers. I think it would have been cool to add him to that mix, and that dynamic with his size and his unique kind of skill set would have been fun to watch. But that's tough. I could sit here all day and make a case probably for every single player, but I am going to go with those 4 guys. And with that being said, time. 2 minutes.
Past 10 minutes.
2 minutes. Good. Perfect.
Past
2
10
minute drill
minutes.
done.
Cody, I'm just going to toss it right back to you. Do your little outro.
Yeah, outro time. Keely's struggling. We've got practice again tomorrow.
So hard.
Stay tuned. Next week, though, is going to be awesome. We're going to get more and more details of fall camp with what we can. But as this fall camp goes through, there's obviously going to be a lot more storylines.
Yeah.
Guys are going to fall into place. Starters, especially when the scrimmages start, starters are going to fall into place. We're really going to get an understanding of who's going to be out there week 0 in what? 24 days.
I can't believe
We're
it.
3 weeks and 3 days away from the Trojans in the Coliseum.
Surreal. I can't believe it.
Kicking off the 23 season. But with that said, all the new listeners on YouTube, everyone that's been a listener from day one, I've been so fortunate to be back around USC football. I think I'm coming up on a year now of doing this podcast.
This is wild.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely loving it. Signed on for a whole nother year too, so we'll be here throughout the season. Awesome to have Dion back, but I love you guys so much. Thank you for welcoming me back. It's been so much fun, and I cannot wait for the season. So fight on, and I'm out.
Woo! Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. Like Cody said, we'll have more analysis coming at you soon. It's all happening so fast. Like we said, fall camp just blurs into each other, and that's also why I'm so tired right now. So I'm going to wrap it up. That's going to wrap. It's 10 p.m.
on the dot.
I have been here way too long.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.